Hey, welcome to Combat Vet Vision, platform where we as veterans get to tell our stories. We get to talk about things. Sponsors, supporters, volunteers get to do it too as well. Co-host Chef Jake Brown on deck, world-renowned chef. We got a really cool show for you today. I mean, I don't believe I've had a World War II story of sorts, but Marty Hagans is on deck, and he is also with the VTRC. He's going to be here to talk about a story about his dad.
And
he's a Coast Guard. So we got two Coast Guard vets in deck, right? Navy and whatnot. So if you're used to seeing one Coast Guard vet normally where you show up, there's going to be two in here today. So hey, Marty, welcome to the show. If you're there, he's going to be. Oh, there you go. Hey, Marty, welcome to the show, brother. Great to have you, Coast Guard vet. You're going to tell some really cool stories, and there's a lot of really awesome processes that are going on behind the scenes that a lot of Americans, or even I, didn't even know until you sent me a lot of information. So first off, just get into your story a little bit. Let's talk about why you joined the Coast Guard and all the things that you're doing. The VTRC, Veterans Transition Resource Center, Reno area. You're doing all kinds of stuff. Go ahead, Marty.
Thanks, Chief. JB, how you doing?
Good, buddy. How are you today? My
fellow Semper Paratus, Chef.
Yeah, there you go.
So just a thumbnail sketch of what got me in the Coast Guard was that my father is a World War II vet, did not get enough of being a POW in the Philippines, and when Korea broke out, he went to the recruiter and said, "Here I am, take me." And they said, "No, we don't need you. You've done enough. So you stay home this time." And he says, "Well, I'm going anyway, with or without you." And they said, "Well, in that case, we'll recall you back in." So that was his line, that they recalled him. He actually packed an overnight bag, went up to San Francisco where they didn't know him in Fresno, and went into the recruiter up there and gave him some sort of cock and bull story, and all of a sudden he's in. But he received recall papers about a week later. And anyway, so just real quick, the reason I went in the Coast Guard was that, one, sleeping in a hole didn't sound fun to me.
No. Eating
out of my helmet really didn't sound fun. Spending 9 to 12 months at sea, yeah, that's great on a cruise ship, but not on a flat top.
Yeah.
The Marine Corps, God bless them, but they like to be the first ones of the party every single time. Yeah. And then I just thought, you know what? There's this little group over here in Morro Bay with this little 95-foot patrol boat. They go out during the day. They come back in the evening. They hang out in Morro Bay. And you know what? That sounds like a ball to me. And so I jumped on that. And when my dad found out I'd gone in the Coast Guard, he reflected for months of where he had gone wrong, and
yeah.
But I went in. I had a great time. I became a flag chef. I worked for our commandant in the 17th district. His residence was Diamond Head Lighthouse in Hawaii, and I spent my last 15 months in service there. And spent 2 years on a ship up in the Bering Sea. Went to Japan on a Loran station. It was a hoot for me, and I had every intention of making a career out of it. But other decisions that I had made prior to my military service kind of jumped in the way and decided that's not where we want you to go. So it turned out it was great. It was fantastic. And anybody ever asked me about the services, I always throw the Coasties in there and say, hey, listen, give them a shot. Give them a shot. But anyway, that's me.
That's what I say,
Hey, thanks, Marty. And when did you want to continue doing stuff for veterans? What was that inspired you? Obviously, your dad's influences in so many motivational ways.
His influence on me has been as far back as I can remember. his stories. Understand, I just heard the stories of his POW days. He was 13 when he enlisted in the Filipino Scouts, only because he knew that, and my grandfather was Army Corps of Engineers. My grandfather reinstated his commission. He was a major, and knowing that the U.S. Army would not take my father, he snuck across the street and talked with his buddy, Colonel Vesey, and Vesey said, "Yeah, you speak all the languages we need. Not only you speak Visayan, you speak 7 different dialects of Visayan, plus you speak 3 Moro dialects, which is the indigenous Islamic people in Mindanao." And he spoke all those dialects. Being 13 years of age, he was fleet of foot, and they made a courier out of him immediately. And he was his area was between Kalambugan and Cagayan. That was his area of concern. And about 60, 70 miles between the two of them. And that was his area that he had to traverse daily, delivering messages back and forth and that kind of thing.
They didn't drive in those days, did they?
What's that?
They didn't drive in those days.
No.
On foot?
Point A to point B was left totally up to him. However you can get there, you get there. He sometimes he'd jump on the back of a carabao that wasn't tied up, and he'd ride that up the road, or he'd find a bicycle that was unattended, and he'd take that. He loved the horses. When he could find a horse, he would jump on that one. Just real quick story. He had to deliver some messages up to Cagayan, and he was about 40 miles away, and he heard this, what he thought was an airplane coming in, and he realized, wait a minute, that airplane's on the water. Well, hey, if I can jump on that airplane, I'll get Cagayan in just a few minutes. And it turned out to be PT-41, and that was Lieutenant Buckley's boat. And there were 2 other boats in there with him, and they told him, he says, Dad walked up to 41, and he says, where are you guys going? They said Cagayan. He says, that's right where I got to go. Can I get a ride? And he says, let me talk to the captain. Lieutenant comes up, and he says, yeah, you can ride with us, but you're going to stay down in the engine compartment because we've got some people coming up here, and we're going to be taking them to Cagayan as well. And I don't want you anywhere around them. So you stay out of the way, sight unseen. This is a 13-year-old kid, you know. You just stay out of the way, sight unseen. Well, you know, you tell a 13-year-old kid you can't go there, what's the first thing they're doing? So the boat pulls away from the dock, and he sees one of his childhood friends through the contact of my grandfather. Remember, my grandfather was Army Corps of Engineers, and he pops open this hatch, and he looks up, and there's General MacArthur and his wife and Arthur, his son, with a whole entourage, and they're getting him out of the Philippines right now. And he pokes his head up out of this hatch, and he sees the general, and the general looks down at him and says, Benny, what are you doing here? And he jumps out of the hatch, runs up and shakes his hand. He says, hello, General. And here's Buckley standing there going, what the who is this kid?
Right.
But, yeah, being a courier put him in some pretty unique spots. And it was going good until it wasn't, you know?
Yeah, that's
he got captured along with my grandfather, grandmother, and his brother Douglas at Lake Lanao, which is up on the top of Mindanao, and they were trying to go north from Iligan in the south to the northern part of Mindanao. And when they got up to Lake Lanao, which is the Donsalan area, that's where they got captured. I guess it was a hellacious firefight up there. Dad was wounded, shrapnel all on his legs and everything, and it was not a very good day. And
he got captured at the age of
13.
13. And this is by Japan.
Yep. And so he spent the next 3 years as a as he puts it, a guest of the Imperial War Machine, and he was marched over to Camp Keithley, where they had set up a ad hoc camp for them. And I can go down a rabbit trail here real quick. So you let me know if I'm drifting. Let me know.
Hey, we'll work on that, and then
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So anyway, he my grandfather, grandmother, uncle, and my father are now housed at Camp Keithley, and this is the let's see, January, July, June. This is the end of June. Last week, I guess, in June. And the Japanese let them know that, if you look around, you don't see we have a lot of barbed wire here. If any of you decide to take off, have a great time. Godspeed, and we hope you make it. You probably won't, but if you decide to escape, nothing we can do about it. Just remember that if somebody leaves here, we're going to go into your ranks and we're going to take the same number out of your ranks and we will execute them. And this is one of the things that we'll get into that segment later. This will tie that in. 4 guys decided to take off, and the Japanese, true to their words, they went through the ranks the next morning. This would have been July 3rd, 42. Yeah. And took 4 guys out of the ranks and tied them up to stakes, and they were ready to be executed. A gentleman by the name of Colonel Vesey. I mentioned his name just a little while ago. This was one of my boyhood, my dad's boyhood friends. He was very tight with my grandfather. And Colonel Vesey would come over to their house out on the beach there in Mindanao and throw a baseball for my dad. And that dad knew him very, very well. He was a Mason. My grandfather was a Mason. Just knew him. He walks up to the Japanese commandant and said, "Listen, one of the guys that you've got tied up there is General Fort, Guy O. Fort. And he's a constabulary general. He was ready to retire about 2 weeks before you clowns showed up, and now you've got him up to a stake. He's an old guy. He doesn't deserve this. So you cut him down, and I'll take his place." And Colonel Tanaka said, "Body's a body to me." So they cut the general down. They put Vesey up there, Dad thinking it was just going to be just a quick execution and it'll be done with. No, Japanese used them as for bayonet practice, and it took them almost three hours for them to die up there on those stakes. And Dad stood there and watched his friend being bayoneted several times, and then just standing there, just bleeding out. They didn't hit anything vital; it was all in the stomach. And these are stories that, like I said, I didn't hear these until way later in my life. But we'll stop there. The next day, July 4th, the Japanese planned it for 4th of July for the Americans and marched everybody in that camp back down to Iligan, which was about 53 miles. The Bataan Death March was 66 miles, and the Mindanao Death March about 55, and they were both equally as brutal. Stories like that just kind of have resonated, through my life. I'm now starting to hear them over and over again. I haven't heard any new stories. A couple twists on a few of them, but Dad's 96 now, and he's slow and he's old, but I tell you what, when you take him out, you got to keep your eye on him, because he will get away from you, and he'll go out and do his own program, and you got to rein him back in. Oh, he's a trip.
Yeah, and his recollection of the story has made a huge amount of waves to make sure that these soldiers that passed and were buried there are found. Is that correct? If you can, that's through AMAG, right?
AMAG.
You can talk a little bit about.
Yeah. So my wife Kelly one day just put a thing out on the internet for the Filipino Scout Heritage group, and within I don't know, probably about 6 to 8 hours, she had a hit. And this guy comes on and says, "Hey, how do you know about this stuff? And why do you know about this stuff? And where did you learn about this stuff?" And she turns it over to me and says, "Hey, talk to this guy, because this is a guy on the internet I've never heard. I don't know. I don't want to talk to him." And so I said, "Okay, I'll talk to him." Well, of course, I didn't. And 2 days, 3 days later, she's getting emails on her work email. And now she's a little bit, shall we say, animated. I told you to talk to this guy. You didn't talk to him. Now I'm telling you to talk to this guy. And so I sent him a little message. And boy, I tell you what, within a half hour, we're on a phone call. And he says, "I don't mean to take up your time, but this is pretty interesting stuff." And he says, "I'll only keep you about 10 minutes and we'll see where it goes." Well, that was a 3-hour phone call. We talked well into the night. And this was John Bear with the Asymmetric MIA POW Accounting Group, AMAG. They are a non-profit group that is extraordinary in finding lost soldiers, lost airmen, lost sailors. We have a group in the United States government, DPAA. They have a $200 million budget. They turn out 50 cases a year. 50, not 49, most certainly not 51, but they'll have their 50 at the end of the year. And they go to places like the Punch Bowl in Hawaii, or they'll go to some national cemetery and they'll find an unknown and exhume that unknown, do some DNA testing, and voila, hey, we returned another one. AMAG doesn't do that. AMAG goes places where our government will not let us go, i.e., southern Philippines on the Mindanao Island. That is still the wild, wild west down there. It's you can do some research. At one point, we thought that Osama bin Laden was holed up down there. So that's the kind of guys you're dealing with. Well, AMAG goes out there. They put us on a Zoom call one night with Dad and another lady by the name of Barbara Fox, who was General Fort's granddaughter. And she had all of his archival stuff. He had diaries from 1901 through 1930-ish, I think. And these diaries were just, laid out of what's happening in town, what's happening on the island, what's happening with the people, artifacts that are priceless artifacts to the Moro people. And she gets in there, Dad gets on there first, and they open it up, just like our meeting here started today. And he starts speaking Visayan to these guys, and that kind of bounced them back in their seats. And after a few minutes of that, he flips into his Moro dialects, and they're waving their hands, going, "No, no, 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 no. Who are you? Who is this white guy that speaks better language, our language, better than we do?" And so Dad goes into his whole story. Barbara Fox comes on, and we get the notice the next day that if AMAG wants to come in here and look for things and look for people, wherever they want to go, we're kicking the door open to them. And that was huge, huge. And that's how AMAG works. They go where nobody else can. Did that answer the question?
Oh, definitely. When this organization AMAG, their emblem, is on my promo stuff that I put on before this. I put some stuff out there, but they have a poppy over a compass, and it with the world involved, because anywhere in the world is there's a without borders. They want to go and do this. The
Right.
poppy, obviously, for remembrance, World War II remembrance, obviously, just such a real cool, significant thing. There's organizations out there that are doing amazing things, and I don't know them all. And Marty, thanks for introducing me to that deal.
Yeah.
On top of it all, you sent me a lot of other material, the war horses, just talking
Mhm.
about that and some other things that were,
Ken McLaughlin wrote that story on Dad to begin with.
and it's a story about your father. And there's just so many other things. I mean, these stories are not necessarily stories you might not be as familiar with, because I think our history has kind of made movies and scathed over some of these things. But
Yeah.
those horses, that story, really kind of hit hard, because I mean, I grew up on a farm and ranch, and horses, super awesome creatures. And if anybody knows anything about them, they become almost temperament towards your temperament, and they have to be, especially if they're going into combat, they have to be very specialized, because freaking a horse out can really end up killing you. And so if your horse is ready to fight, your horse is ready to fight with you, there's something special about that.
Mm-hmm.
But these horses lost their lives, and they had to be eaten, and all kinds of other crazy things with them. So it was really kind of a story on how, this whole thing went down, and horses become, part of your battle buddy, and so many things, therapeutic effect, and, all these things. And, it's just a huge amount of things. But they're going to go find some bodies. They've already found them. Is that what I understand? And there's a show
there was a key component to where these bodies might be.
Okay.
And because Dad was present at the execution, they knew, AMAG knew that this atrocity had happened. General Fort is the only flag officer in World War II that was ever executed by the enemy.
He was
executed? Yeah.
After
he was executed. He was executed about 2 weeks later. Wow. Dad was on that march and didn't know anything about it. Fort was executed because he told the Muslims, he refused to tell the Muslims to lay down their arms. Told the Moros, the Moro Muslims, do not lay down your arms, keep fighting, And as he was being fired upon, he looked at Colonel Tanaka and said, "You may get me, but you will not get the United States of America."
Yeah.
And that was documented. Dad didn't know anything of that because he was being marched back to Iligan. Anyway, so they knew that this atrocity had happened. He knew about VC, Price, Chandler, and I can't remember the other officer. Anyway, they knew that this had happened. They didn't know where. And Dad was telling them, well, they marched us out and they put us by the Keithley Monument. And this is a concrete monolith, if you will, recognizing the efforts of Private Keithley. This was Spanish-American War, I believe. And, prior to World War II, let me just put that out. Anyway, the only camp ever named after an enlisted person. All the other camps, all the other forts are all officers. But Camp Keithley, he was on guard duty, and his position was overrun at night. And when they found him in the morning, he was staked to the ground with spears, one in each shoulder, one right through the heart into the ground, and one in each leg, and had him spread out, pinned to the ground. However, there was 37 dead around him that he had taken on. So, he told him, "You better pack a lunch. You're going to get me, but you better bring a lunch with you because you're going to be here all night." Anyway, so they knew about this, and Dad was telling them in his numerous calls with them that you've got to find that monument. Well, we've been told that it's been torn down. It's gone. It's been built over. It's probably under a parking lot now. And they were just hoping that they could find maybe the square base of this monolith, right? My grandfather and the governor of the island at that time, with a bunch of other Masons, erected this monument to Keithley. And so Dad knew exactly where it was. And lo and behold, one of our new friends out there by the name of Rue Alanto, he goes traipsing through the jungle, and I'll be damned if he didn't find it. It's in the back corner of the power plant in Dunsalin, which is Marari City now. And this thing is all overgrown. The plaque has been removed off of it, but it's undeniable that's it. The base is still there. The monolith is still on there. That is it. It's all overgrown with jungle and bird feces and barbed wire and everything else, but doggone it, he found it. Now, from that spot, now they talked to Dad again, and he triangulated everything out for him and said, okay, this is where you guys need to look. And lo and behold, where they need to look is a place called People's Park. And it's been a park ever since. No one has ever built through it, built over it, or anything like that. And in the pre-war pictures, Dad's pointing out that what you see in this picture in the background, you think that's a road. It wasn't. It was a ditch. All of a sudden, the eyebrows go up and thought, well, God, what a perfect burial spot. We just throw all these POWs in this ditch and, be done with them. And so they're looking at that hot and heavy. Don't know when they're going to go out. Don't know anything about it. But they now have, very, very good intel that might lead them to the spot. VC was shot and killed Fort was shot and killed, executed at the firing range. That firing range is on the side of Signal Hill in Dunsalin, about half a mile away from where the camp used to be. And you can still see it. You can see the backdrop, the mounds and everything. You can still see it with aerial photos and that type of stuff. And they did not know where in the area. And Dad says, no, it was right there. I had heard stories that it was right there, and they just kicked him off into a grave. He says, when I was out there, I saw graves all dug along this side, and I knew this is where the executions were going to be. And he says there must have been, 70, 80 graves that were pre-dug out there. And he said, so if anybody's getting executed at the firing range, that's where they're buried. They didn't have that information, They found General Fort's bunker that he used as his command post. That was found. AMAG team found it. They went into it. Actually, it was Ruolanto that found it. And there's a picture that came out to us, and there's our archaeologist, Skylar Johnson, and Mike Henshaw. They're standing in the opening of this concrete bunker. And it says, first time since World War II, Americans have been in here, and just thought, wow. And so, they've got some real good intel. The thing that we don't know when they're going back out is because they're self-funded. They rely on donations, everything. They're not paid. They use those donations for plane flights. They use that for stuff that they need, like ground penetrating radar. If they're staying in hotels, that's all self-funded, and we've got a group, DPAA, with a $200 million budget. These guys are self-funded and can go places where DPA will never go.
Yeah.
And it just, you hear stuff like that and you just kind of get, a little
there's some
color,
there's some frustration. I mean, with there's a lot of things that I don't know, citizens can do much better than government because we're not under the same regulations and same kind of stipulations and all this weird stuff that politically just stops us from really making advancements. And I feel like
when AMAG got out there, they were grilled that you are not part of the U.S. government, and they
don't want any infiltration.
They just want a stack of Bibles. We got nothing to do with it.
let's just go and do it. Let's find these guys. Let's make it happen.
Right.
Hey, that is great.
How many people are still missing?
Throughout World War II, it's a huge number. I know that we have 83 still missing here in the state of Nevada. And wow. some of those are Navy veterans. Sorry, Chief. Some of those are Navy veterans that went down with their ship, and they are absolutely unrecoverable. Yeah. We just marked their ship, and okay, that's their grave. Yeah. However, there are still about 83 people in the state. Some are Army, a couple Marines in there, a bunch of Air Force guys in there, and it all kind of revolves around Vietnam for the Air Force, and World War II for the Army. A couple of them were in the I think there's about 7 or 8 that were in the European theater, and a handful that were in the Pacific theater, and the rest of them are absolutely unrecoverable. A lot of Navy guys. So yeah. Well,
we can understand that with the Navy, but my real question was, did they ever find General Ford?
No. See, and that's the thing. They don't know where he was buried.
Or any of them.
No, haven't found him. And so they're trying to get their bank account built back up, and they know they want to go back out and look. They just don't know when, because they've got to get their bank accounts built back up to afford the tickets to get out there and the lodging to get out there. There's also, they also have to pay to get into areas that normal people would not be able to get into.
Yes.
Local government, local government, they need their help too, Yeah. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
So,
and Marty, you carry this story for your father because he's 96. He's having a hard time telling it. And, but you've heard it so much that you're able to help out with this process. And, what a great, legacy to carry on with you. It's unfortunate that you have to carry the burden of it, but you share that, and it's good.
There's probably not a lot of kids that were my age growing up that heard stories like this, and like I said, all I heard when I was a kid were the funny stories. And Dad would say, if we were up on an elevated platform in a building or something where they were keeping us, we'd wait until the Japanese guards would go walking underneath our window, and we'd throw stuff out the window on top of them. I said, well, what kind of stuff? And he said, well, I'll leave that up to your imagination. We didn't have the best of facilities, if you will. And he said the trick was, when you'd throw this out on them, the trick was to pull yourself back into the window as a line of machine gun bullets went across the windowsill above your head. That was the game, and those were the funny stories that I heard. It wasn't until years later that he and I made a trip out to Andersonville in the state of Georgia, the Andersonville POW Memorial and Museum out there. It wasn't until, and this was 4 years ago, it wasn't until then that when I went through that museum, he waited outside for me. And I walked through that museum, took about 2.5 hours to actually go through this thing. It wasn't until then that
it's all right, Marty.
Sorry.
Hey, that he opened up to you a little bit.
That I realized just what kind of stories he was telling me were absolutely flipping true. And that's when it hit me that, yeah, I carry these stories, and it's my honor.
Yeah.
Hey, Marty, thanks for sharing. And how was it? How did your dad get out of there? It's 3 years. He was a POW.
So at the end of the war, he's being transported by a truck from one camp, and everybody's being consolidated into Santo Tomas, which is the university there in Manila. And he knew exactly what was going to happen had he decided to go with his initial idea. He got booted out of this truck. He's now 16 years old. He weighs 46 pounds. He's got every tropical disease that you can think of, and stuff they didn't even have names for back then. Dysentery, beriberi, everything. He was a wreck. Teeth were falling out. And he gets off this truck and he says, well, I know what's going to happen. He sits down for a minute. He says, I sat down for a minute and I looked at that gate, and I looked up and I could see the guys up in the towers. And he says, I know exactly what's going to happen to me, and I don't care. I didn't put in for this. I didn't request this. I want nothing to do with this anymore. It's 3 years. My father's dead. My mother's dead. My brother's dead. They've got to be dead. And I'm done. And so he goes to push himself up out of the mud, and some lady comes over to him and starts saying something to him and just snaps his attention away from what he was actually doing. And he waves her off, and she takes off, and he sits back down and gets ready to go again. And that same lady comes back with another lady. And the second lady looks down at him and says, Benny, you get up, Benny. He looks up, and there's his mom.
There's his mom.
Wow.
Yeah. So about a week later, another truck pulls in. A bunch of old guys get pushed out, and they had heard that these guys were coming from Intramuros, which was the walled city, the old city of Manila. And Intramuros was the military camp. That was not a fun place. That was a horrible place to be. I remember as a little kid, I was about 6, I think, 5 or 6, going out there for the first time. And I'm walking up to this wall, and I'm thinking, this is so cool. I can take my little fingers and I can put these fingers, I can connect all these holes in this wall. This is kind of cool. They did this just for me. Till my grandmother pulls me aside and says, let me explain to you what you're doing. Those holes in that wall is their wall that they used for their executions. And those little holes that you're putting your little fingers in is where a human being stood before they were executed. I remember that speech. I remember her looking down at me. I will never, at the age of 5 or 6, that part of it all became real to me. And so this truck shows up. A bunch of guys get booted out of the back of it. One of them is my grandfather.
So they didn't die.
They did not die.
Hey,
they did not die.
Hey, Marty, we're going to have to cut it a little short, but we would love to come back and get some more, especially as things progress and as you want. I'd love to have you back. Any final words, and how can people help?
Well, look up AMAG, AMAG.org, I believe it is. And they have hundreds of stories. I shouldn't say hundreds. They've got a lot of stories of recoveries that they have done. Read those stories. Know that the people that they are they're working with, these are families that have waited 80, 70, 60 years for our government to finally say, yeah, we found them. We're bringing them home. And they've waited for this. Every time you call DPA, it's just another dog and pony show. I don't mean to sit out here tonight and bash DPAA, but sometimes you got to call it. And AMAG is able to go in and do the research, do the legwork, do the groundwork, do the excavation work, and most times they come back with remains that are then repatriated back to these service members' families. The closure that brings to these people, I've never had to experience that, thank God. But it's intense. It is intense. So read the stories that AMAG has out there. Read the stories of the war horse. Know that freedom is
not free.
Not free.
Pricey.
Thanks, Chef. It is not free. And
exactly.
These I'm sorry, guys.
No,
Marty,
it's okay.
Hey, Marty, thanks for sharing. Thanks for being here. Thanks for giving us such a intense stuff, man. It's
reality.
The reality of life, of freedom is paid in blood. And
amen. That blood is the actual living family members, a dad, a grandfather, a brother, a cousin, an uncle, and it's real. It's real. So
there's a lot of gold families out there.
Way too many. But if VTRC, we are partnering with AMAG in donations and getting their word out. If we can, whatever we can do to help them out, return some of these folks back to their families. VTRC is right there, and we're rocking and rolling. Like I said, there's 83 here left in Nevada that are still missing, and within the next couple of weeks, that will be my research thing, is to find out, who these people were. I'll be over at the State Museum. Evidently, they have a repository of veterans, war veterans over there, and I'll be going through that stuff and seeing what I can find. But and that will definitely be on behalf of VTRC. So, that's what we do, and we do what we can, and we're just a little spoke in a big ass wheel, and we hope we can turn that wheel a couple strokes,
Yeah. So we're going to be doing a chip in a chair up in Reno or Carson City,
right,
at the museum, the Nevada State Museum,
right where we were last year.
Yep, and I'll be up there with some of my people, and we're going to help do the food, and maybe we can raise some money to help APAC.
That would be awesome. We'll see where that goes, but if you've got a hot stove, Chef, you let me know. I'll with you.
We'll put you to work, Marty. I know you were the Admiral Chef, so we always work together. Don't worry.
Yeah, I just did real quick.
Who would ever believe?
I just did a wedding banquet for 250 people at our church, and I tell you what, there was some divine intervention in that one. I haven't cooked a meal that big in a long time, and there was some serious felony divine intervention on that meal. I'll tell you, you'll understand.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Good stuff.
Now that you're back, I'll give you a call.
All right, cool.
Hey, Marty, thanks a lot for everything, brother. Appreciate you.
My pleasure, Chief. And welcome again. Welcome aboard at VTRC. We're looking for great things from your podcast. Whatever I can do personally for you, please let me know. Whatever VTRC can do for you, please let us know. We've got to get this podcast out. We've got to get these stories out. We've got to get these missing, these MIA and POW guys. We've got to get them home. It's just not satisfactory to leave them out there and just turn a blind eye. Well, we don't know anything about them. So too bad. These families deserve so much more than what our country has given them. So
I gotcha.
That's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Marty.
Thanks,
strength and honor. Hey, I got Colonel Mack on deck. He's coming on for the segment. Colonel Mack is a writer, a book writer. He has been on my podcast before. You can look him up and see how we had this great podcast. He did a book. He wrote a book on the podcast. He wrote a couple books since then. Colonel Mack, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, good to see you again, Chief. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here. You've invited me to a lot of your things. You got a writers club that helps guys write their books, a whole bunch of things. Hey, feel free to, put some stuff out there. We got a couple minutes. Take your time.
Yeah, well, tell your previous guest, since I've been publishing books, writing memoirs, and now I'm helping other veterans, document their stuff. So, I've done a couple anthologies for veterans, and I'm doing another one right now for Loma Linda Hospital. They have a writer support group. So I'm doing an anthology for them. In doing it, I put it together, edit it, format it, and all that for the guys, and kind of like the project head. But pass that on to your previous guest. Some of his stories need to be documented. And me, I'm a literary guy. I like to write. So I could probably help him in that degree. So
yeah, I did talk to him about that prior to the show anyway. So
yeah.
He's already
a lot of guys don't know how to get started. But this is the weapon of choice that Chief and I did. This is the and this one really, I put it at a really inexpensive price. It's just a few bucks. You can get it on ebook for about $3. But this is a great story between Chief and me, and dealing with PTSD and kind of post-military life and the transition to becoming a civilian. And Chief is gracious to let me use his information and podcast, and it's a very well done little book, and it's only about 60 or 70 pages. So it's got some pictures. It's a quick read, 70 pages. It's a quick read. So anyway, that's for veterans, and I often go to the VA hospital and just hand them out. So
wow, yeah, it was a great book. Thanks for writing that too. I mean, that's
I recommend put it on your website or whatever. If you want, I can put the link in your chat. So long story short, we got the 250th anniversary for America's birthday. So what I did, it took me a couple years to put this together, this project, but it's basically it's a book series, memoirs of Operation Iraqi Freedom. And here's the first one that came out, and I'm releasing them every month leading up to the 4th of July. And the last book will come out on the 4th. So every month, and there's a historical date involved. Like the 19th, I released First Day, First Firefight. And that 19th April was the anniversary of the start of the Revolutionary War with Lexington and Concord, and they first exchanged blows. So each book is released on a significant day, VE Day, D-Day, so, I'm kind of a history geek, so in that respect. So Home to Hell's out already. It's doing pretty well. It's ranked first for like Iraq history. First Day, First Firefight. There's 5 books in this series. That just came out on the 19th, and we premiered it down at the Los Angeles Times Festival for Books. It was pretty well received. We signed a lot of autographs and stuff. And Mark Harmon, the actor, he got a copy of that. So that was pretty exciting meeting him. The Bird of Command comes out in about another week or two. That's an advanced copy. And then we have other 2 more books. The Bird of Command, and then On Patrol is not here, but On Patrol comes out. And then Whispers of Mutiny, which is the 5th in the book, which is a psychological study of leadership or lack of leadership.
Okay.
And that's kind of the most recent in my world. I got YouTube videos that basically talk about veterans, trying to help veterans transition from military to civilian life. And then this is a self-help book, and I put it in the same category as the Veteran Survival Guide. These are self-help books geared towards veterans and how to transition to become a civilian and how to be successful. And I got a couple more of these in the hopper, and a couple kids books, and the kids books all have like a good moral of the story. You know, try to and it's told from Grandpop and his little Shih Tzu dog. You know, in the little dog's antics. It's kind of funny. You can Google me, John McVerde, or JohnWrightsHistory.com, or John Wrights History on Google, on YouTube, Amazon. I got dozens of videos out there and thousands and tens of thousands of views.
Well, thanks, Colonel Mack. And we're going to have you back on the show later on. A couple weeks from now, we'll have a full podcast talking about these books and talking about your writing club and really, you know, getting the veterans the information they need on all this stuff. And we can put some more information out there about all your stuff. But this is a pre-warm up to his podcast. And thanks for coming on. You're the first guy in my in between segments that gets to brief something like this, upcoming events, what you got going on.
I'm going to put some one or two things in your chat box. If you can share that with your audience, I'm going to put two things in there. One is the Amazon, and then the YouTube, because the YouTube stuff, a lot of my YouTube videos are for veterans, and I'd really like to have them come. You know, I'm not monetizing myself on YouTube, but it's more a public service, and I really encourage veterans to go check out my YouTube stuff. And you know, we deployed California Army National Guard. I deployed with 1,000 soldiers, and I'm reaching out to all those soldiers, their families. Any of them want to make contact with me, they're welcome. My memoirs are written for them, for their legacy, and the legacy of our 5 soldiers that did not return home. And it's not for monetary gain; it's for legacy, and keeping our little microcosm of American history alive and well, and pass it on down our generations. And that's really my purpose. And that's why, Chief, you know me pretty well, and you know my motivation. And that's what makes me wake up in the morning and want to jump on that computer and start putting rounds down range again, and you know, cranking out. I'm working on about 6 books right now as we speak.
Okay. Well, you know, that's what makes my life interesting. I get to hang out with, you know, Chef JB here, and I get to hang out with real veterans that are really trying to help navigate a lot of different things and opportunities for our veterans and the community of what we do. Yeah. I think it's a very special niche and a very honored place to be. And it's just,
and I thank you for speaking in our recent writers group. Aaron Chief was the guest speaker, and that was great. I had such great comments from those guys, and you opened their eyes about this whole, you know, World Wide Web podcast. You know, a lot of these are older guys, Vietnam veterans, and they're not that savvy to the social media stuff. So I think you enlighten them. That's a good thing.
Yeah, and I got, you know, next week I believe I have Captain Kelly coming on. That's from the Writers Club that you had me do. So
he's a great man.
So
yeah, Kenny Calvin, he is a very smart individual. He's helped me a lot, you know, in more ways than he's even aware of. Kelly's a great person, and he and I both worked for General Gravett, and he was a wonderful general and commanding general. But yeah, it's a good group. I'm in a couple of different groups, and again, John Wright's History. I'm out there, YouTube, Google, whatever, Amazon. I got 20 plus books, and you know, if you're a veteran, you want a book, you contact me, I'll probably send you one for free. You know, I'm not really in it for the, you know, getting rich or famous. So,
and help you write it too.
Thanks for having me on, Chief.
Yeah. Hey, Colonel Mack, thanks a lot, brother. Appreciate you. Until next time.
Colonel Mack, I'm going to start reading some things on it.
Hey, Chef JB, it's your time, man. Let's take a couple minutes, and then hopefully we can get Brian on to do a feed drop on us, and we'll see how this works out.
Okay. You know, the Veterans Transition Resource Center has a pig out this Saturday at the Eagles, 310 East Pacific Avenue in Henderson, Nevada. They have a banquet hall there. We do the honor flight there and some other things. I'm a really good barbecue chef, but you know, there's a group that comes in and does this for us. They're part of the motorcycle group, and they're volunteers, and they really like to do this. So my hats are off to them. Aaron, you and I are going to go eat Saturday, maybe with your family. My wife's got to work, but we're going to go out and show our support. They're going to have wonderful raffle prizes. And it's one of our major fundraisers for the Veterans Transition Resource Center. And besides that, November, we've got the honor flight coming up. This Thursday, you know, you're coming to dinner. It's the Chef of the Year dinner.
Yeah,
And
you're chef. You're the chef of the year.
yes,
Yeah, that's pretty
nominated
cool.
as
12 nominations.
yeah. So 12 years I've been in the running, and I finally got it. So, you know, one of the bucket lists are being accomplished, and you know,
I mean, Hall of Fame is like the deal, but you know, hey,
Yeah.
chef of the year.
yeah,
But,
still,
hey, that's your goal.
Yeah.
That's your goal. That was cool. That's
Yeah.
cool.
I'm already in the Hall of Fame, so
That's
I
right.
mean,
That's
now
right.
they're going to give me Chef of the Year. So, you know,
Usually one comes before the other, and it's usually
Hey.
chef of the year, then Hall of Fame.
well,
But hey,
you know what? God has a master plan. You know,
that's right. He took you right
the
to
thing
the top.
about it is, I'm still out there. I'm doing St. Jude's Ranch now with the Blooming Bistro. I do the veterans. I do the chefs. I mean, you know, I keep pretty busy, but it's good. You know, it's I'm not ready to quit living yet. You know, you either get busy living or you get busy dying. And I'm 74, and I love life too much. So, you know, remember that.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, thanks for doing this with me. It's very exciting to be with you.
Oh,
on
it
this.
is. I mean,
I know the timing put you, you know, you're doing it from your home right now, but he'll be right here next to me sooner than later. But you know,
probably
we're
next
gonna have
week.
some good time.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna work it out next week where I'm in the studio. I might not get there till 10 to 1, but I'll be there in the studio with you. And we're gonna start doing a lot of things at the studio and at our headquarters. That's 2301 East Sunset Road, Unit 3, and it's right across from the airport landing strips. You know, we had a good show.
Las Vegas, Nevada.
You finally got our studio up and running, and we're 5G, so not any interruptions, no lag, I don't think. But we'll talk.
Brian's going to feed drop us here in a second.
Okay,
So.
all right. So to our listeners, if you have somebody that you think would be great on our show, get a hold of Chief. You know, we'll vet him a little bit and probably bring him on because, you know, we're rocking and rolling every week. And it's, you know what? We have interesting people, and that's great. You know, Marty was, you know, very interesting. He's told me a little bit about his background over the years, but, you know, this is pretty intense. I mean, he got quite emotional a few times, and whenever you got emotional, you got a lot of passion, you know, and a lot of feeling. And, you know, you got the hairs on my arm standing up a couple of times, you know, a lieutenant colonel taking over for a general and just putting his life. I mean, I mean, it's, I don't know if I'd be that brave. I just don't. I've never been in that situation. So thank God, you know, I'm busy helping people though. I know that.
Definitely,
So,
Chef.
okay. Well, I think it's been a great show. We're right at the hour mark. I think.
Yeah, Brian, you got time to come on and do a quick little feed drop on us, brother?
Yeah.
You know I do.
All right.
Great content today. Back end show notes. We need to clean them up. I cleaned them up for you. So take a look at today's show notes, and that's how we need to replicate it. That's going to make things a little smoother. The one thing the show notes are lacking are guest links, Chef, your links, whether it be LinkedIn, Facebook, where can people find you?
Okay.
BTRC, you know, those links are probably in your.
They're in my
link.
cool. my.
But we
link
definitely
tree.
want to highlight where our listeners and audience can find the guests that we bring on. That's paramount. That will add a lot of value to them. Chef, you gotta squash Chief every once in a while and step up and take control. I was expecting a little more out of you with a coastie on, you know?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to just walk all over him, but in the same respect, yeah, it's great. I mean, I'm learning the gig,
Other than that, hardware and some SaaS services have been improved vastly since the last couple of months. So there was no lag. Everything was spot on. You're actually pushing out at a higher resolution for the video. The audio sounds great. I can't wait till both of you are in the studio.
Well, I'll be there next week.
Awesome.
That's a promise.
That's all I've got for you, boys.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks a lot, Brian. And hey, just so you guys know, Feed Drops, the reason why I'm calling it Feed Drop is because Brian Colburn, he's a podcaster. He is a podcast master. He's the reason why this podcast exists, is sitchradio.com, manages this whole thing, puts it together. And Brian rates podcasts. He rates really good ones that are put out there, that are tuned up and very well put together. So that's why we call it Feed Drops. I'm like, hey, Brian's going to come on and feed drop us, because that's where we're going to get our critiques, and that's what's going to make us better. And for you that are podcasting that need to learn or do something about it, that's where it's going to come from. Chef JB, what you got for last words, brother?
Hey, just this week is the pig out. I'm glad our show's finally coming together. We've been working on it now for about 3 months, and it's really starting to click. So, hey, my hat's off to you, brother.
Hey, thanks a lot. Hey, just to remind everybody, I do warrior groups 3 times a week. So if any veteran needs that warrior group stuff, hit me up. Let me know if you want to be involved in that. Get involved. The other thing is, hey, there is a track chair that will be coming available to a veteran that really needs one, that wants to get out there and do stuff. And a track chair, if you want to know what that is, it's like the monster capability of a wheelchair. It's fully automated, and you can roll and go, and it's got a triangle track on it that gets through places. And that is coming from my good buddy John Ellero, and he has a link to this, and he's going to put that out there. And it's Mobility Made Fun, and that's his company, along with another company. But hit me up if you need that. On top of that, it's just great to be here. Thanks for all the hard work and efforts between all of us on the show, and all the guests that always want to get involved. And Colonel Mac, thanks for coming on deck too. And
yeah,
that's all I got. Until next time, for me, strength and honor. Chef.
Bon appetit.
The only way, and we need nothing more. The only way, together forever, that's for sure.